Here in my hands is the soundtrack to Grim Fandango, composed by Peter McConnell. And this is the remastered soundtrack, which was distributed by I Am 8-Bit, who is also done, which were also the dudes who released the Skyrim soundtrack on record. Yeah. Obviously, Grim Fandango is my favorite game of all time, but I also think the soundtrack is so damn good, but that's probably in part with it being my favorite game. It could be a bias, or I could just think that the Peter McConnell who did the soundtrack did an incredible job on this.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, as for the soundtrack itself, it has a ton of different jazz influences, from swing to acid jazz, as well as Latino jazz, given that it's a kind of Mexican Day of the Dead afterlife themed game in the first place. But even on top of that, Peter McConnell managed to influence like old film soundtracks, like from Casablanca, which the game is most heavily influenced by. Now, unlike the release of I Am 8-Bit's Skyrim soundtrack, which is more like a greatest hits, this, on the other hand, is the entire soundtrack, and the last side of it actually has a bunch of bonus tracks that aren't on the remastered version that's available to play on Spotify. This would be the third video game soundtrack that I own on record. So we have Grim Fandango, the Skyrim soundtrack, and then the Dear Esther soundtrack, which is not an I Am 8-Bit release. This was released by Black Screen Records. Anyways, and I am a super proud owner of actually owning soundtracks to games that I love, especially on record, because it's like, as things transition into the digital age, there's really not a way to preserve video games in an analog format, because that's a format that never existed on. And I feel like if I'm going to actually make the effort to collect something that I want to display and have, I would want it to be something special. And I feel like records are special. It's also just good music to make coffee to. It's also good music for reading. Oh. You love the Grim Fandango soundtrack, don't you, Megatron? You just love it. You love it. You love. Ah, God, fuck. I am just extremely enthusiastic and super happy with it. And I Am 8-Bit, you did good. Thank you. Now I just need the Katamari Damacy soundtrack on vinyl. That would be sweet. I actually have no idea if that exists. If it exists, you let me know. Does it exist? I should have done my research. Lily is telling me that it exists. Does it exist, Lily? No, she's shy. Now, in all honesty, this is kind of a self-indulgent video that I think would only really appeal to people who are already avid fans of Grim Fandango. So if you're here and you're looking for that vinyl, it is good. If it's still available on I Am 8-Bit, it is worth your money, especially if you're a Grim Fandango fan and have bought it several times over and over and over again, and have a mug handmade for you by a friend, because they're great. Okay, enough of that. Thank you so much for coming by. I'm Kurt Indovina. Hope you got something out of this. Hope you like Grim Fandango. If you don't know about Grim Fandango, you should know about Grim Fandango. My cat's teleporting. I can ramble. I've made like 6 videos about Grim Fandango. I'm gonna stop talking about Grim Fandango. I'm not gonna stop talking about it, but I'm gonna at least I'm gonna end it here.